You think you are just watching a tennis player having a great season, but you are not. What Jannik Sinner is doing right now is not just a hot streak. It is the systematic destruction of open competition in modern tennis. We all love the drama of the sport. We love the fierce baseline rallies that push the human body to its absolute limits. We love the unpredictable shifts in momentum when a match can turn on a single unforced error. We live for the days when a heavy underdog catches fire and takes down a massive titan on center court. That unpredictable nature is the true beauty of an open field. It is why we tune in every single week. But in 2026, Jannik Sinner has shattered that illusion entirely. He is not just defeating his opponents, he is making the very act of winning feel completely inevitable. Let us start with something absolutely nobody can argue with: the raw, cold data. Throughout the 2026 season, he has maintained a win rate hovering well above 90%. In the modern era of professional tennis, where the margins between the #1 player in the world and the number 50 player are incredibly thin, that number is completely absurd. It defies the fundamental logic of athletic competition. It tells us we are no longer watching a fair fight. It tells us we are watching a machine operating at maximum efficiency without any human error. People see the final scorelines on their phones, and they cheer wildly. They see the golden trophies lifting into the sky, and they applaud the greatness of a young champion. But they are missing the darker reality of what is actually happening on the court week after week. The sport of tennis is supposed to be incredibly hard. It is supposed to involve deep physical suffering and intense mental doubt and moments of pure panic. Jannik Sinner has completely removed doubt from the entire equation. He has eliminated the panic from his side of the net. But the scariest part is not just the sheer volume of his wins. It is the deep secret behind how he makes winning feel entirely inevitable. To understand how absurd this situation truly is, you have to look closely at the Masters 1000 level. This is the absolute peak of the ATP Tour outside of the 4 major Grand Slams. This is the brutal gladiatorial arena where the top 50 players in the world usually tear each other apart for every single ranking point and every dollar of prize money. It is a grueling test of physical endurance and mental fortitude. Yet Jannik Sinner is casually walking through these elite brackets without dropping a single set. Right now, he is riding a massive streak of over 20 consecutive match victories. He just steamrolled his way directly into the Madrid Open final, and the rest of the locker room is absolutely terrified of his current form. But the streak itself is not the real story here. Streaks happen in sports. The real story is how those victories actually look to the naked eye. There are no chaotic 5-set thrillers keeping the stadium awake past midnight. There are no crazy comeback narratives where he looks highly vulnerable before miraculously finding his form in the final moments. Instead, we are witnessing clean and cold and brutal executions. He steps onto the brightly lit court and clinically dissects the best athletes on the planet with zero remorse. He conquered the Sunshine Double by taking Indian Wells and Miami without even breaking a sweat. He is currently on the verge of capturing 5 consecutive Masters 1000 titles stretching all the way back to Paris in the fall of 2025. Let that monumental achievement sink in for a moment. 5 consecutive Masters titles across different continents and different surfaces. That places him in a legendary territory previously reserved for names like Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal. But here is the terrifying difference that nobody wants to admit. Even those absolute legends rarely maintained this level of continuous robotic perfection through such an exhausting stretch of international tournaments. They had bad days where their serve abandoned them. They had matches where they barely survived by sheer willpower and the raw energy of the crowd. Jannik Sinner is not just surviving these matches, he is completely suffocating the tour. When you watch him dismantle top-tier players in Madrid with a 6-2 and 6-4 scoreline, you realize the other guys never even had a chance to breathe. They are stepping onto the red clay or the hard court, already knowing the final outcome before the umpire even calls the first serve. This level of sustained clinical excellence changes how we view the sport entirely. We are no longer asking if he will win the tournament when the draw comes out. We are asking how fast he will finish the job and pack his bags for the next city. Media outlets initially called this a great run of form. Then they upgraded their vocabulary to total dominance. Now they are starting to use terrifying words like untouchable and inevitable. It is a fundamental shift in the entire tennis ecosystem. When you witness a young player rewrite the sacred laws of a global sport right in front of your eyes, it makes you want to understand every single hidden detail of their genius. If you crave that kind of deep analytical breakdown into the brilliant minds of the greatest athletes, I invite you to subscribe and become part of our community today. Which brings us to the first terrifying revelation about the game of Jannik Sinner and the missing piece that makes him so incredibly dangerous. Every legend in tennis history had a weakness you could exploit. But when opponents step onto the court against Jannik Sinner in 2026, they are not playing a tennis match. They are taking a suffocating test of absolute perfection. Look back at the absolute giants of the game. Roger Federer was a beautiful artist on the court. He floated above the baseline and painted masterpieces. But early in his career, and even during his prime, his high one-handed backhand could be systematically targeted by heavy topspin. Rafael Nadal is the undisputed king of clay. He built an empire on the red dirt of Paris, but put him on a blazing fast indoor hard court against a massive server, and he suddenly looked highly vulnerable. Novak Djokovic is the ultimate rubber wall. He bends, but he rarely breaks. But there were rare days when his physical endurance dipped or his motivation slightly faded. They all had a tactical gap. They all had a small window where an opponent could find a tiny sliver of hope. Now look at the 2026 version of Jannik Sinner. Try to find the missing piece. Try to find the safe zone. You will quickly realize there is absolutely nowhere to hide. His serve is not the absolute biggest on the tour. He does not bomb aces like John Isner or Milos Raonic, but it is perfectly placed and relentlessly consistent, so you cannot attack it easily. His return game currently sits among the absolute best in the entire world. He instantly neutralizes any advantage the server thinks they have by blocking the ball deep down the middle of the court. His baseline ground strokes are incredibly clean and highly penetrating. He hits with terrifying pace, but his unforced error count remains bizarrely low compared to the sheer velocity he generates on every single swing. This creates a massive paradox for anyone standing on the other side of the net. There is no specific area to target. There is no obvious tactical gap to exploit. And when there is no weakness to attack, the match morphs into a brutal psychological prison. You are forced to play the perfect match. You have to paint the lines on every single shot just to stay alive in the rally. But Jannik Sinner does not have to be perfect. He only has to be incredibly solid because he knows you will eventually crack first. A normal tennis player feels the mounting pressure of a long, exhausting rally and tries to end the point quickly with a highly risky winner. They aim for the absolute corner of the court and pray the ball lands inside the line. Sinner refuses to take that bait. He extends the rally just enough. He does not keep the ball in play so long that he risks losing his grip on the point. He keeps it alive exactly long enough for his opponent to feel the creeping sense of panic in their lungs. He hits the ball deep into the corners. He constantly forces his rival to backpedal and hit from highly defensive positions off their back foot. When he pushes them completely out of position, he does not always rush the net like a madman trying to end it with a spectacular volley. He just calmly maintains the heavy, suffocating pressure from the baseline. He locks them in a vice grip of heavy topspin and flat aggressive drives. This is exactly where top-tier professionals fall into his deadly trap. They feel the overwhelming urge to do something spectacular, just to change the dynamic of the point. They feel the walls of the stadium closing in on them. They try to hit a miracle shot down the line to escape the suffering. And they miss the mark by exactly 2 inches. Elite players have described playing him right now as a feeling of total physical and mental suffocation. There is no singular explosive moment that kills you. There is no massive highlight reel shot that ends your tournament. There is only a slow and agonizing buildup of pressure until your entire game completely collapses under the weight of his consistency. It is a slow death on a beautiful tennis court. But having no technical weakness is only half the equation. The real secret the thing that truly breaks his opponents, happens entirely inside his head. This is the ultimate revelation nobody is talking about. The greatest weapon of Jannik Sinner is not his baseline power. It is his completely deadened nervous system under maximum pressure. Physical technique and elite footwork can elevate you to the top of the professional rankings. A great forehand can win you a lot of matches on a Sunday afternoon, but only a bulletproof mind can make you truly invincible in the modern era. Watch his face carefully during the most chaotic moments of a Grand Slam final. Watch his completely empty eyes when the crowd is screaming loudly and the tension inside the arena is thick enough to cut with a knife. He barely changes his facial expression at all. He does not pump his fists wildly after hitting a massive forehand winner down the line. He does not scream angrily at his coaching box when he misses a crucial overhead volley. Many casual fans mistake this extreme silence for a boring personality. They think he lacks the fiery passion of previous tennis champions, but they are completely misunderstanding what they are witnessing on the screen. This emotional flatline is not an image issue or a lack of caring. It is the definitive sign of a nervous system that absolutely refuses to crack under the crushing weight of the moment. We are watching a masterclass in psychological control. I am deeply curious what you all think about this specific character trait. Do you personally prefer the fiery, loud emotion of a player who wears their heart on their sleeve during every single point? Or do you find this robotic and silent dominance much more intimidating to watch as a fan? Let me know your honest thoughts down in the comments, because this debate is tearing the tennis world apart right now, and I want to know where you stand. Let us look at the most stressful and terrifying situations in the entire sport. Think about facing a critical break point deep in the third set of a grueling match. Think about a high-stakes tiebreak where one single careless mistake ends your entire week and sends you packing for the airport. The average human body naturally floods with adrenaline and fear during these exact moments. Muscles tighten up in the shoulders. Footwork gets slightly heavier and slower. Breathing becomes rapid and shallow. Even the absolute greatest champions in the history of the game often change their tactical approach when the stakes are highest. They might play too aggressively out of pure panic and hit the ball directly into the net. They might shrink back fearfully and push the ball safely, hoping the other guy misses first. Jannik Sinner does neither of those normal human things. When the pressure reaches an absolute boiling point, he does not alter his game plan at all. He simply continues to execute his precise baseline strategy with the exact same steady rhythm he used in the opening game of the match. He plays the defining point of a championship final with the identical calm energy of a Tuesday morning practice session. This is incredibly rare to witness. Very few elite athletes in the entire history of professional sports possess this specific mental superpower. It completely destroys the fighting spirit of his challengers on the other side of the net. Imagine playing the absolute best tennis of your entire life. Imagine pushing the current #1 player in the world to the absolute limit of their physical and mental endurance. You finally get a small opening in the armor. You finally create a golden chance to break his serve and take complete control of the match. And he just stares blankly back at you with dead eyes and hits a perfect cross-court backhand directly onto the baseline. He completely denies you the emotional satisfaction of seeing him struggle. He denies you the basic hope that he might eventually fold under the massive pressure of the stadium. He simply resets his racket strings and prepares quietly for the next point, like a machine executing a line of code. It is an exhausting and terrifying reality for the rest of the tour to face. When you combine a flawless tactical game with an unbreakable mind, you do not just win tournaments. You start rewriting history. Do not just take my word for it. The data is literally breaking the historical models of the sport. We are looking at 37 consecutive sets won at the ATP Masters 1000 level. Let me repeat that number so it truly sinks in. 37 consecutive sets against the absolute best tennis players on the planet. That is a number that even prime Novak Djokovic could not touch. Back in 2016, Djokovic set the previous record with 24 consecutive sets. We all thought that specific record was utterly untouchable. We thought it represented the absolute physical limit of human consistency. Jannik Sinner did not just break that sacred record, he completely obliterated it. He stretched it from the Paris tournament in the fall of 2025 all the way through Monte Carlo in 2026. Think about the variety of playing conditions packed into that specific run. He dominated the indoor hard courts of Paris. He conquered the slow, high-bouncing conditions of Indian Wells. He survived the blazing heat and humidity of Miami. And then he transitioned flawlessly to the slow red clay of Monte Carlo. He did all of this without dropping a single solitary set. This level of sustained dominance is unprecedented. And he is doing it at an age that makes it even more terrifying. At just 24 years old, he became the youngest player in the modern era to reach 9 different Masters 1000 finals. He achieved this massive milestone at the Madrid Open in 2026. When you look at the historical context of that achievement, it is absolutely mind-blowing. Novak Djokovic reached that exact same milestone at age 25. Rafael Nadal did it at age 27. Roger Federer did not hit that mark until he was 30 years old. Jannik Sinner is literally mathematically ahead of the greatest trio to ever play the game. But raw numbers only tell one side of the story. The ultimate proof of his terrifying new reality comes directly from the legends themselves. When the media talks about a new star, you can take it with a grain of salt. But when the guys who have dominated the sport for 2 decades start sounding the alarm, you need to pay close attention. Novak Djokovic recently highlighted that Jannik Sinner is simply the most complete player of this new generation. He specifically pointed out his incredible ability to maintain elite intensity and unbroken focus over long, grueling stretches of time. Coming from the ultimate master of mental focus that is the highest praise possible, Rafael Nadal also weighed in on the phenomenon. He praised the incredibly rapid evolution of his game and his flawless adaptability across every single surface type. These legendary champions do not hand out compliments easily. They know exactly what it takes to build a dynasty. They recognize a finished product when they see one. They all agree on one specific point. Jannik Sinner is not just highly talented. He possesses a strategic maturity that goes far beyond his actual years. This is the exact combination of traits that builds an empire. The raw physical ability to overpower the tour, the tactical genius to never leave an opening, the mental coldness to never blink under pressure. And now he has the historical data and the validation from the absolute gods of the sport to back it all up. He is not just a rising star anymore. He is the absolute standard. With the numbers backing up his undeniable dominance, it leaves us with one chilling question for the rest of the ATP Tour. Jannik Sinner is not completely unbeatable. He is a human being, and he will eventually lose tennis matches. But right now, beating him requires a literal perfect match from his opponent. And in the brutal world of professional sports, perfection is a complete myth. You might string together a flawless opening set. You might even play 2 perfect sets if you are having the absolute match of your life and the crowd is carrying you forward. But asking someone to play a perfect 3 or 5 set match just to have a tiny chance at victory is an impossible task. That is why the feeling of total invincibility surrounds him right now. It is not because he cannot mathematically lose. It is because the probability of an opponent sustaining that impossible level of perfection long enough to actually beat him is incredibly low. We have to look at the broader landscape of the tour to fully grasp what is happening right now. The timing of this absolute peak is devastating for the rest of the field. Carlos Alcaraz is his greatest natural rival, but he has been battling frustrating physical injuries and highly inconsistent form. Novak Djokovic is naturally reducing his tournament schedule as he manages his aging body. The rest of the elite players lack the long-term consistency to challenge him week after week. Some analysts say Jannik Sinner is simply taking advantage of a natural gap in the tennis ecosystem. But that is fundamentally wrong. A gap only exists if someone is strong enough to step into it and claim it. Jannik Sinner is not just stepping into the empty space, he is violently suffocating it. He is claiming the entire kingdom for himself and locking the gates behind him. If he maintains this robotic and terrifying form, the 2026 season will not just be remembered as a highly successful year, It will be recorded in the history books as the definitive starting point of a brand new era. An era where open competition takes a back seat to a one-man show. The rest of the tour is officially on notice. We are watching a player who is completely unstoppable and utterly unbreakable. Are we officially entering the one-man era of Jannik Sinner? Let me know in the comments who you think can actually stop him, and subscribe to see if anyone figures out the impossible.